Here we go. Let me tell you how we got into this place in the first place. And I'll answer the question, but the governor decided to get behind a $15 minimum wage and passed through his executive order a way of doing this for just fast food workers. And then made it very clear to us that he intended to do one by one each sector of the economy, which is why the upstate members came together in the Assembly and the Senate to try to find some way of mitigating this upstate. And that minimum wage is going to be slowed down in the implementation for upstate. So it gives us a chance to take a look at how this is working and monitor the impact on business. And it's going to give us a chance to weigh in, I think, in the third year of this to provide important feedback on how it's affecting business. Most people feel that this money will be spent locally, that it will all work out in the long run. I'm willing to suspend my concern and see how it works out, but I have to tell you, we were in a tough spot in terms of upstate, in terms of the judging whether we could absorb that or not. I'm hopeful it's going to turn out okay, but I certainly understand people's concerns about this.
Thank you. Mr. Nixon.
Thank you, Jim. So do I think that wages in our area are at the right level? No. I think they're too low, generally. Do I think, though, that the right way to tackle that was this minimum wage increase, even with the lower amount that is upstate? No, I don't. I think we need to focus on figuring out why wages may lag. Is it tied to productivity? Is it tied to too much retail? And what I mean by that is retail, as many of you know, is only a real career when you own it or you manage it. Otherwise, you're there working for a certain amount of time, then you need to transition to a different job. You need to figure out what skills do I need and what do I need to do. My first job was with Wegmans Food Markets Incorporated. I worked for them from 1994 to 2001. I enjoyed the job very well. Never dreamed that it was going to be my career. That was never the intention. They helped give me scholarships so I could go to Cornell, etc., etc. One of the reasons we may be dealing with lower wages here may be because people need to figure out, okay, is this really working or do I need to do something else? Because this is part of freedom. You can choose to change careers, you can choose to change locations, and if we don't get Albany to start playing ball and create and cut taxes and do the regulatory reform needed to bring New York's business economy into the 21st century for the other sectors other than Wall Street and entertainment, then we're in trouble. And we're in major trouble already. That's what we need to do. It strikes me also that there is infrastructure work that could have been done with the money that is now going. Well, that's right. We have to ask Governor Cuomo about that. Where it's going. I don't know.
All right. I'm sorry, Mr. Nixon. You're out. Mr. Akshar, the minimum wage, its impact on business.
I think it has the potential to be extremely devastating. But I want to talk about reality for just a moment. The governor got the Republican Senate conference together for dinner one night and talked about this very issue. And he spoke very candidly. And he was frank and he said that he wanted $15 an hour across the board for every discipline in the state of New York yesterday. And that was very problematic because the time that I've spent with business owners in this district, I knew that $15 an hour to them was not the same as a business owner in Manhattan or Brooklyn. Right? So $15 an hour was going to impact us differently. So the upstate representatives immediately got together and said, how are we going to compromise with the governor on this? Because he could, by statute, invoke the wage board, as we saw him do with tipped wage workers, and create a real problem for us. So at the end of the day, I think the compromise with the wage increase for upstate, albeit our colleagues downstate and on the island don't agree. But the compromise that we got at the end of the day was the best that we could have possibly done for upstate. With the slower phase-in, with the economic impact study in year 3, and then taking the statutory authority away from the governor to convene a wage board in the event that that economic impact study doesn't come back in his favor in year 3. I think that that was a good compromise. But at the end of the day, folks, if we would have focused our energy and attention on improving the business climate in the state, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Because my guess is that all of you as business owners in this room, if it was easy to do business here, if the cost of doing business was lower, you'd be taking care of your employees. Because we talk all the time about recruitment and retention of employees, right? And if you were doing well and you were successful, you were thriving, you were prospering, you wouldn't have to have the government tell you what the wage should be. So my position, I'm going back to improving the overall business climate in this state, and we wouldn't have to have that conversation about the government setting the wage.
All right, thank you, Mr. Akshar. Ms. Ball.
This is a difficult question for me because I grew up working class. And I understand the pressures on businesses. I really do. I actually, for 5 years I struggled to run a business in New York State, and it was very difficult. I ended up closing my doors and selling my business. But I also know a lot of struggling people. I've known struggling people my whole life. And so what do we do with them? What do we do for them? I'm not saying, I'm just going to be honest with you, I don't like these arguments being presented as the businesses versus the workers, the people who are feeding their families, trying to, on $12.50 an hour or $10 an hour. So I want to just kind of put a word in for them. I understand the difficulty of doing business in New York, but I'm going to go back to my point about corruption. I'm going to go back to the point about what kind of taxes what kind of tax breaks, what kind of taxes could we eliminate? What kind of insane regulation could we eliminate if we had a transparent government that we could trust? I know that's a big idea when you're talking about your bottom line, but I want to say that the people, this is not just an hourly wage, it's people's lives. It's all those children that we were talking about who are in poverty, because you're not going to get rich making $10 an hour. You're just not.
We're out of time. Thank you, Ms. Ball. Okay, at this point, we're